Okay. All right. All right, before we sit, if everybody can stand real quick and face the flag for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everybody please take your seats. All right. All right, Joe fixed it?
Fixed it.
Yeah. Does it need a battery?
Yeah. Probably.
Okay, probably. All right.
Got one, Joe?
Oh, if it's slow, it's gonna feel like real time.
Good Lord.
All right. Where's Mr. Hanson?
Okay.
Love the beard. All right, stay there. I got you, brother. I got you. My law enforcement guy. All right, so we got a couple things tonight before we start our meeting. But first, Bill, you're supposed to remind me. I'm going to make a motion
Don't forget
to
to open the
open
meeting.
up the village board's business meeting for October 21st. May I have a second? All in favor? Aye. All right, so for tonight, our deputy mayor and our DPW superintendent are both upstate. They're at the highway department annual event up there. It's like a NICOM event in your conference of mayors, so they're both out tonight. But we have a quorum. We got 4 trustees here, and we're ready to rock. So this is going to be a thrill for me tonight. Let me see which one I'm going to start with. So, Mr. Hanson, let's start with you. Stay right where you are, brother. So, where's Captain Trainer? All right. And now who's from Cornwall EMS? You're going to handle that? Okay, you want me to go first? All right, so I'm going to go first. So, all right, so we had an incident that happened down at the riverfront a couple of weeks ago, and we're thrilled that we had somebody who was there in the right place at the right time. So on behalf of the village board, I'm going to acknowledge Mr. Hanson. Just stay there, sir. So whereas on the instant date, Saturday, August 10th, 2024, Storm King Engine Number 2, the Cornwall and Hudson Fire Department, received an alarm call and immediately responded to the vicinity of the Donahue Memorial Park riverfront location in order to address a possible drowning along the public dock and boat launch area toward the southern end of the park. Within 2 minutes, the village's volunteers were on scene and advised by dispatch that a medevac was en route. This type of dispatch only occurs when a patient is considered in need of high-level medical care and transport. As our emergency responders descended upon the scene to assess the situation, a local civilian, retired NYPD Detective Sean Hanson, one of my people, sprung into action. And whereas Mr. Hanson, hearing cries for help, seeing 3 potential victims in the water, calmly and heroically entered the water and sought to remove potential victims from the choppy Hudson River. Immediately bringing a young child back to the dock, he then went back and assisted a 20-year-old male back to safety. Diving back into the murky waters, he located a submerged female 2 feet below the waterline. Fighting against the current, he safely towed her back to the water's edge. He then provided immediate first aid and trauma care, clearing the female victim's airways of water and ensuring she could breathe, as our first responders engaged. The potential victim was clearly under duress and understandably stressed, and if not for Mr. Hanson's quick thinking, cool under pressure actions, courageous decision-making, and selfless efforts, and I'm embarrassing you, Detective, I know that, this incident might have ended quite differently. The female victim and child, neither of whom could swim, were transported to a medical facility. Storm King Engine Number 2 and Cornwall EMS responders were appreciative of his response and felt it was the margin of victory in life-saving efforts. And whereas at his own potential peril, Mr. Hanson set out to bring victims ashore, battling the Hudson River and distressed victims who could have caused him harm. Once ashore, Mr. Hanson relayed valuable information to first responders, providing necessary and invaluable information. Mr. Hanson, a decorated NYPD police officer and 911 first responder, retired from the NYPD. Thank you for your service, sir, in 2021. He never forgot the oath that we protect and serve. And now therefore be it resolved by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the village of Cornwall and Hudson and on occasion of the recent heroic efforts of Detective Retired Sean Hansen, the Village Board of Cornwall and Hudson acknowledges your selfless service to our community, sir, and provides this proclamation as a small measure of our gratitude. How about a round of applause for Detective Hansen? Before I bring you up, two things. So October 18th, 2024, which was 3 days ago, Long Island hero, 48 years old, drowns trying to save woman and son, 10 years old, while on family vacation in Bermuda. So you don't think that this was a big deal? It's a big deal. John 15:13, greater love hath no man than this, that a man could potentially lay down his life for his friends. Brother, thank you. All right? Captain, come on up.
Chief, Assistant Chief, you guys want to come up real quick? Want me here or you want me up there?
Right there, Captain. Right there.
I'm Captain Tom Trainer. I'm with the Cornwall and Hudson Fire Department. That day we were called upon to potentially rescue 3 visitors to our village. Luckily, we had members at our firehouse, and we got there rather quickly. Prior to us being able to provide aid, we were lucky enough to witness Sean and see what he has done for protecting our community and the residents and the visitors. The fire department has a medals program to recognize our members and civilians. This medal that we're about to award Sean is this the first of its kind. This is the only one that we were lucky enough to have to give, but we are very proud to give. So I got a certificate here signed by our Fire Chief Charles Quinn, Police Chief Stephen Dixon, and Assistant Chief from Cornwall EMS Shannon Cohn. And it says, Village of Cornwall and Hudson, New York, Civilian Life Saving Award presented to Sean Hansen in recognition of his heroism while rescuing individuals from drowning in the Hudson River. As the mayor said, this is something that people kind of take for granted. What Sean did that day amplifies the act of love for everyone else. His service to not only our community, but the city of New York and communities around us should be applauded. So I'd like to give this certificate and medal to Sean Hansen.
Get in there, Chief. All right. Detective, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All
I
right.
really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Detective, I'd get out of here while the getting's good. This is going to be a long meeting, so get out of here quickly. All right. Thank you, brother. Thank you, Captain, and thank you. All right. So our next one, this one is long overdue. So I've been talking about this. The village board has been talking about this for the last year and a half. So there's this crazy crew, and it's called the Cornwall Cleanup Crew. And they meet every Sunday morning out by CVS. You'll see them there with their orange shirts. And it is a wonderful group of people, because people talk about things, but the people that actually roll their sleeves up and get things done, it's a small percentage of people that complain and carp about things. We all know that people dump things, dump trash in our village, dump trash on 218, dump trash in the town. It's an awful, awful thing. I want to give you a quick heads up on what we're talking about. So in the year 2023, which was just last year, if my math is right, the Cornwall Cleanup Crew did 50 picks. And of those 50 picks, they found 350 plus tires. They found 50 oil filters and containers, 22 mattresses and box springs, 15 televisions, 90 contractor-filled trash bags, 1 dishwasher, 1 refrigerator, 3 water heaters, 1 car battery, 1 toilet, 30 guardrail roadwork signs, 1 scuba tank, 5 propane tanks, 40-plus truck bench seats and other car parts, 1 microwave oven, 5 recliners or metal futon frames, and a lot, that's all they put down, of children's toys to include scooters, teddy bears, bikes, and baby carriages, 40 political signs and expired lawn signs, 1 howitzer shell casing, and 10 bikes, stationary bikes, and stair steppers, and thousands of cans, bottles, and fast food wrappers. So the Cornwall cleanup crew, I've seen them every single weekend, and I'm embarrassed to say the only time that I actually made my way out there was when Congressman Ryan was in town, and I came out to see what they were doing because Congressman Ryan was going to go out and help for that day, and I showed up out there and watched these people do what they do. So without further ado, I'd like to present them a proclamation. It's a small thing. This isn't going to help you out at all other than promote what you've done and the appreciation this village board has for what you've done. So whereas the Cornwall Cleanup Crew, a group of selfless local volunteers who identified a huge need within our community, refused to stand idly by, and eschewed awaiting local government to handle an obvious local issue, showed up every weekend for the last 18 months, rolled up their sleeves, took control, got muddy, and made an enormous difference in our community. And whereas the members of the Cornwall Cleanup Crew began their volunteer efforts in January of 2023, meeting at 10 a.m. every Sunday morning in Cornwall Plaza parking lot, and led an effort to inspire environmentally conscious group focused on assisting and serving the greater Cornwall community. Their, quote, pick of the day, close quote, focused on local roadsides, handling randomly tossed aside debris and refuse in an effort to clean up Cornwall. And whereas the intrepid members of the Cornwall Cleanup Crew focused on remote and oft-ignored stretches of local roadways that they personally scouted and identified in order to help protect our precious environment. This began when the group's founder, Bob Rogan, identified the problem and sent a letter to the Cornwall Local in December of 2022, appealing to the community that we have a major litter problem, and he made a public pronouncement to provide his own garbage bags to alleviate the trash problem. Community members heard the clarion call and turned out in groves. And whereas the Cornwall Central High School students have engaged and earned volunteer service credits here, the Association of Fundraising Professionals has recognized Cornwall Cleanup Crew. The town of Cornwall has agreed to provide an equipment shed for this effort, and the Adopt a Highway process is well in effect. And the current president leader of the Cornwall Cleanup Crew, Ms. Tracy Andrews, has spearheaded a new 21st century spirit of volunteerism. And now, therefore, be it resolved that by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the village of Cornwall and Hudson, and on occasion of the soon-to-be second anniversary of the Cornwall Cleanup Crew, a recently certified and well-deserved 501c3 nonprofit organization, and on behalf of this village board, I do hereby proclaim today, Monday, October 21st, 2024, Cornwall Cleanup Crew Day in the village of Cornwall and Hudson, New York. Congratulations. You're the ones that get it done, so thank you for what you've done. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
And all of you who are here, thank
Yes.
you. All right? All right. Thank you again. All right, that's the good stuff. So Cornwall Cleanup Crew, get out of here while you got a chance, because it's going to get long and bloviating. Okay, that's the good stuff. So let's move on to our first thing, and got to do those two. All right, public comment. Anybody that wishes to
Mr.
speak?
Mayor, do you
have
wanna-
3 minutes to.
Do you want to open the public hearing and do that before public comment, or?
I had that down lower.
Yeah, we have it down lower. Joe, you
Okay,
think
that's
you should do it
fine.
first?
No, anyway,
You're talking
anyway.
about the tree
no,
law?
Any way you want to do this, fine.
All right, don't let me forget. Okay, so public comment. So you have 3 minutes to speak. Anybody wishes to speak can do it at the beginning of the meeting or at the end of the meeting, either way. Eric, go ahead. Yep, just, you got to step up here, just state your name and address for the record, and then
Sure.
have at it.
So I'm Mary Ann Odell. I live at 21 Duncan Avenue, down in the village. And this is reference to the tree law, the tree preservation law, and the accepting into the law of a single-family dwelling. I'd like to just explain to you what happened in my neighborhood. Hopefully will help you with your decision. So across the street from me, I live just up from the square, just to give you a reference, is a private drive that is for 4 houses, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. The 2 in the back are half acres, about. And there's 2 half acres, and then there's another small house. And then the next lot is the multifamily apartment complex that's on Hudson Street. So if you can kind of get that in your head. On one of the half acres, a new owner came in and took a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, single-family dwelling down and clear-cut the trees. I stopped counting at 50. So I'm estimating about 60 trees were removed from the single-family dwelling and the dwelling itself. Over at the multifamily, they have a project as well, in addition, and they took down 10, 14, 15, whatever trees. So totally about 70 trees were removed. Of those, about 25 of them were over 100 years old. They told a story. No longer they're there to tell that story. The property owner built on that half-acre lot, taking down the 2-bedroom, 1-bath. They built a 7-bedroom, 7-bath, 3-story single-family dwelling. So it must be a huge family. There's no buffer. All the buffer was removed from all the lot. So the negative impact to me across the street is that I now have a direct line wind, north-northwest wind. I have a western sun. The sound, I can hear painters drop a fork, and I can hear the announcer at the middle school football game. The animal habitat is just destroyed. Most of those animals, those small animals, came to my house looking for a place to live, and my neighbors on my side. And then the climate change issue is just, I can't believe it happened. So in your decision, a single-family dwelling had no requirements to come to the boards, the planning or zoning. Of course, the multifamily did and was guided, I'm sure in their tree removal and in their size. It needs to be considered that needs to be part of the law.
I got one question for you, Mary Ann.
go ahead.
Yes.
Do you know how many square foot that dwelling is?
I don't. 7-bedroom, 7-bath, and an in-ground pool.
So that is what we're grappling with right now is we're trying to adopt, not in its entirety, the town's tree preservation law. We know it doesn't apply completely to the village. We have more green spaces. We need to look at it more in depth, and that's one of our concerns because the town tree preservation law protects anybody that lives in a single family or you know, mother-daughter type of situation on their own property. But what do you do if somebody owns 5 acres or 4 acres and
This
they
is
say,
a half acre.
Yep.
This is a half acre in the village square.
but a lot of trees there, and what
Right.
can you do? So we are going to leave it open tonight. We're going to talk about this. We're not going to approve anything tonight. We've had long discussions with council in regard to that very issue. Your points are well taken.
Well, good. Then you could come and sit on my porch and be blinded by the sun and the wind blowing while the sound of Hudson Street goes by and realize that we've lost history in removing those trees because they
There's-
told a story.
Yeah, and there's nothing we can do to replace that.
That's
'cause-
correct.
Right?
So let's look
However,
forward.
going forward, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you for your time.
You got it. Thank you for the heads up. Appreciate that. All right, anybody else on public comment? You'll also have an opportunity.
Before your meeting's over.
What's that?
I'm leaving before your
Yeah, all right. Good move. Anybody else want to speak now, or you have an opportunity at the end? Okay, all right, let's move on then. So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to accept the August 19th, 2024 business meeting minutes as prepared. May I have a second? Any further discussion?
One amendment, I think. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, are you doing one at a time?
Yep, one at a time.
Okay, sorry. I wasn't here for the September one.
Okay,
One of them,
that's the next one.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so all in favor?
aye.
All right, so 4 ayes. All right, I'm going to make a motion to accept the September 16th, 2024 business meeting minutes as prepared. May I have a second?
Second.
Bill, you're going to abstain?
You weren't there either.
No, only three of us.
Uh-oh.
You're right.
Kane
One
and
of the,
Lori.
one of the three is not here.
And one of the three.
Is there
so-
any requirement that we cannot vote to approve minutes if we were not in attendance at the meeting?
It is not a requirement. The
it
best
best practice?
best practice is to have
So we
people
should
who were
hold that in
here,
abeyance?
as long as there's no absolute need to do it tonight. You can hold it in abeyance.
Okay, got that, Doris? Okay, all right. I'm going to make a motion now to accept the October 7th, 2024 special meeting minutes as prepared. May I have a second?
Second.
All of us were in attendance for that, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
But I believe that the one of the resolutions that we passed in that meeting passed with 5 ayes and 0 nays and was only recorded as 3 ayes.
Okay,
So,
all right.
sorry, I meant to email it today.
That's all right.
I think it was in that meeting.
All right. So
So in
all,
any case, one minor amendment.
and all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay, board department reports. Treasurer's report. Okay, September monthly water report for the village, $428,536.75. The town was $608,541.37 for a total of $1,037,078.12. Warrant number 10 for a total, including all prepaids, $726,538.93. Monthly revenues and expenditure reports by fund. General fund revenues, $3,915,448.26, with expenditures of $3,165,165.52, with water fund revenues at $3,125,670.78, with expenditures of $1,690,051.05. Sewer funds revenues at $313,566.80, with expenditures of $269,844.86. Total receipts, $7,438,977.03, or 85.6467% in anticipated revenues, with $5,199,158.93, or 59.859% in anticipated revenue or expenditures through September. The balance collected for sewer capital is $592,173.48 through September. Total taxes collected through September 24th, $2,973,616.34. And notes. Ms. Gishwin, I'm going to turn it over to you on that. Anything to add on the notes in regards to training and NICLAS interest?
Just ongoing training with our deputy treasurer and also our retired treasurer / village clerk, Jean Mahoney, which I've adored every moment learning from her. And just the NICLAS interest year to date is $20,366.54.
Outstanding. All right, any questions for our village treasurer?
Yeah, I don't know. I just have a slightly different number for warrant number 10. I think you had,
Warrant number 10, I had
726,
726, 538, and 93, and you've got 8.
yeah, quite a bit.
Is
Total is $870,000. That's the correct amount, including prepaids.
okay. This also says including prepaid. So which is the actual number?
The 870.
So it's, all right, so correction on warrant number 10, it's actually $870,504.31, including prepaids.
Yes, that's
So we're going
correct.
to correct that for the record.
Yes.
Thank you, Bill.
You bet.
You got it. All right, so that's that. Moving on to the building department. So trustee Carnwright.
Yes, report for September 2024, Building Department. Building permits issued 15, certificate of compliance occupancy issued 12, on-site inspections 28, violations 5, stop work orders 0, municipal searches 4, solar panels 0, fire inspections 6, Manny A. Carmona, code enforcement officer.
Senor, the man who stole Christmas. What do you got to add? Anything?
Inspection's not in that report, it'll be on next month.
I'm sorry?
That inspection for the lights, it will be in the next month.
All right. There's a reason why there are no harvest lights out front, because the building inspector came and is applying the same level of scrutiny to the village hall that he does everywhere else. But we should be back on track tomorrow? All right.
CVS
Okay.
is open.
All right. Anything else? Any questions for the building inspector?
Lest anyone in the public is hanging in abeyance to wonder what the village hall did wrong, there was an interior extension cord used to connect the harvest lights on the building, which will be replaced with a suitably robust external extension cord.
Anything else, Mr. Building Inspector? All right.
Don't ask him that.
I know. I know.
He's looking around right now.
All right. All right. Anything else for the building inspector? Okay. Moving on, fire department, trustee Paleota.
September 2024 department report. Brush fires 1, natural gas leaks 1, EMS calls 8, automatic alarms 6, vehicle fires 1, motor vehicle accidents 1. I think I have to get glasses. Water rescues 1, standby for other departments 1, animal rescues 1, work details 6, drills 2. There were 2 meetings, 1 public service call, 1 parade. Volunteer hours 435, total events 33. The vehicle fire occurred in Salisbury Mills while tanker 415 was on standby for that department as they were operating at a structure fire. The department took first place for Class B at the Orange County Volunteer Firefighters Association Parade. The auxiliary also took first place for Class B. Our 33-year-old tanker took 3rd place for tankers, even though its brakes lights did not work during the inspection. October is National Fire Prevention Month. Our firefighters will be presenting fire safety to the elementary and nursery school in the village this week.
Chief, anything to add?
The one water rescue does not belong in there. That was an erroneous carryover.
Okay, no worries. Captain, anything to add?
Yield my time to Commissioner.
All right. Mr. Commissioner, sir, we're not going to get into the firehouse until later, but anything to add?
The report was amended and submitted. Sorry that it didn't reach who it needed to.
No worries. Okay. Any questions from trustees for the fire chief or the commissioner? Nope. Okay. Moving on, police department, trustee Brain, right?
Usually.
Yep.
The monthly police report for the Cornwall on Hudson Police Department, September 1st through 30th, 2024. There were 431 total calls for service. There were no felony calls. There were 2 under misdemeanors and violations. There were 2 calls related to fraud and 2 harassment or aggravated harassment calls, and there were no arrests. Vehicle and traffic, there was 1 personal injury accident, 4 property damage accidents, 4 traffic summonses issued, 3 traffic warnings issued, 2 parking summonses issued, 10 traffic enforcement posts, 2 speed and radar sign postings. Non-criminal activity calls included 6 fire response calls, 4 alarm response calls, 2 noise complaints, 6 animal complaints, and 2 disorderly person calls. The department assisted multiple times, 6 Town of Cornwall PD, 11 EMS, 1 for other agencies, another for other police agencies, and performed 3 welfare checks. During the month of September 2024, Sergeant Ruger and Police Officer Kapchick both attended alert active shooter training, which was held in Middletown. During the month of September, Police Officer Bunt and Police Officer Gayton both participated in COHPD firearms training qualification, which was held at the Town of New Windsor Police Department Firearms Range. And during the month of September, Cornwall on Hudson PD assisted with both traffic and security for the 2nd annual Motivate 5K road race event. Respectfully submitted, Chief Stephen E. Dixon.
Chief, anything to add?
No, sir.
Okay. Any questions for Chief Dixon?
Was it in the month of September that we hired both of the two new
Think so,
part-time
right?
officers? Officer Bunt and Officer Gayton?
Are the
It was
figures-
September,
It
right?
was September. Yeah.
It was just-
Okay. Any other questions for the chief? All right, moving on. Department of Public Works, Trustee Paleota.
Department of Public Works, September 2024. Trash collected for the month.
They don't have the total.
We don't
Yeah,
have
there's no
numbers there.
totals.
What do you got?
Totals
Yeah.
are missing for the first three,
Yeah.
because he's not here.
Repairs and maintenance, village-owned vehicles and equipment, blacktop patching, maintenance of vehicle-owned properties, sweeping of streets, cleaning up of the farm property continues. Electric upgrades at the farm added lighting to rear of barn as well as outlets for events. Sewer main maintenance, 2 reported backup snow overflow. Milled River Ave, Washington Street, Lafayette Street, Elpis, and Taylor Place for paving first week in October. Notes, fall bulk pickup is set for October 21st. I will be attending NICOM's Public Works School in Saratoga Springs from October 20th through the 23rd. Numbers are not in at the time of this report. David Halverson, Superintendent of Public Works.
So the superintendent, like I said at the beginning of the meeting, is upstate right now. Obviously, with this weekend, with the village-wide yard sale, a big part of what our boys are going to be doing this week is cleaning up and picking up all the bulk pickup stuff. So anything that didn't get sold is out at the curb, and it'll probably take them a couple of days to get that done. And as Dave pointed out in his report, they've been doing a lot of work down at the farm property as we're prepping that for the New York Forward cash infusion and some of the things that we're going to be doing to improve that property down there. So our guys are working on that. It's also the end of the year where we're doing yard waste, which we'll stop doing here pretty shortly once the snow season starts, but that's what they're working on. Any questions well, Dave's not here, but any issues or questions from the board? No? Okay. Moving on, Trustee Carnwright in the Water Department.
Okay. Water monthly report, September 2024. Monthly production, 23,660,000 gallons. Daily average, 789,000 gallons. We collected 32 samples under our approved water quality monitoring plan. Routine operations and maintenance under treatment, repaired chlorine analyzer. Transmission distribution, excuse me, 181 markouts were completed. Water service shutoffs, turn-ons at owner's request, 25 Meadow, 85 Holleran, 44 Washington, 11 Clark. Water main leaks repaired, Mountain Road and Grandview Avenue. Curb box repaired, 85 Holleran Road, service line repaired, 320 to 322 Hudson Street, repaired fire hydrant at Grandview at Wilson Road. Completed site restoration at Donahue Farm following new water line installation. Installed a new marker stakes on fire hydrants. Under meters, read all meters. 13 final water meter readings were completed. 2 residential water meters replaced. 2 miscellaneous jobs completed. 13 water line inspections were completed. Property maintenance, routine property mowing continues. Took delivery and placed into service. New crane service truck. Assisted DPW with road milling. Michael P. Trainer, Senior Water Superintendent.
Michael, anything to add?
No, sir.
Any questions for the Water Superintendent? Nope. All right, thank you.
Can I pass some of this to Dave, would you?
All right. All right. Next thing, and since the deputy mayor's not here and he normally handles the New Windsor Cornwall EMS, I'll report that there were 362 total dispatches, down 150 from last month. Is there a reason for the?
Yeah, because we don't have town in Newburgh.
Yeah, and that's going to be the story of our life going forward, right? Okay. 100% of calls covered, which is the gold standard and which is what I expect from our EMS crew, and they do an amazing job since they came on board 2.5 years ago, and we're only concerned about making sure that you don't miss calls and they don't miss calls. So 100% of calls covered, 244 patients transported, 247 responses in New Windsor, 81 in the town of Cornwall, and 19 in the village of Cornwall and Hudson. 15 mutual aid calls were handled, and the average response time in New Windsor is 6 minutes and 15 seconds. 5 minutes and 55 seconds for Cornwall, and 6 minutes and 1 second for Cornwall and Hudson. You're still waiting on that fly car? Is that already paid for? Okay. It says, still waiting on one new fly car, one ambulance, and one fly car was sold to Wayway Yonda to offset the cost of replacement vehicles? That's correct? Okay. The 2025 budget was completed, and a grant for a new ambulance will arrive in 2026. It has been obtained by Assemblyman Ekus for $250,000. Well done. Still waiting on a grant for $100,000 from Assemblyman Ekus, and the Cornwall Fund Drive was sent out, and a new HR position was created to focus on staff development. The new schedule for next year's payroll has been reduced by $200,000, which is a result of moving 2 overnight paramedics to Cornwall and eliminating 1 EMT on each overnight shift. So appreciate what you guys are doing. I know you're dealing with trying to make sure that you cover all the calls in New Windsor, the town of Cornwall, the village of Cornwall and Hudson, using the 1 Clinton Street address as your jumping off place and making that work. So I watched the town meeting last week, or was it the beginning? Yeah, it was last week. The supervisor and myself had met with Chief Michael Bigg and with the town of New Windsor supervisor, Mr. Bedetti, to discuss where we're going. July 1st, we no longer have a contract. So we are working, and we've been doing it for the last 6 months, to get a new contract in place. We obviously know that this is who we want to be doing business with, and I know the town, because remember, the village pays taxes to the town doesn't pay taxes to the village, so we pay into that EMS fund as we're working through that. It's built in as we're getting close to resolving the issues right now with the new contract, which will go into effect July 1st of 2025. Am I correct? So, any disagreement with that, or you're comfortable with what I just said? Yep. Okay, so that's that on EMS. Any questions from the board? No? All right, let's move on to resolutions, the annual supply bids. So this is a little bit of pro forma. So I'm going to make a motion to approve the bid documents and specifications authorizing bidding and the publication of the notice to bidders indicating that bids will be accepted up and until 2 p.m. on November 15, 2024 for water treatment chemicals. May I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. I'm now going to make a motion to approve the bid documents and specifications, authorize bidding, and the publication of the notice to bidders indicating the bids will be accepted up and until 2:15 p.m. on November 15, 2024 for quote, off-road diesel, close quote. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And lastly, I'm going to make a motion to approve the bid documents and specifications, authorize bidding, and the publication of the notice to bidders indicating the bids will be accepted until 2:30 p.m. on November 15, 2024 for sludge removal services. May I have a second? Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, more pro forma. Renewal of energy pricing agreement. I'm going to report that the energy rates have blessedly decreased as compared to the rate that was locked in 2 years ago. So it's important that the village lock in a fixed rate to protect against possible rate increases. The 24-month fixed rate currently available is 0.08913 cents per kilowatt hour provided by Energy Resources LLC. The expiring fixed electric rate for the village is 0.11595 cents per kilowatt hour, and Central Hudson's current rate this month is 0.09818 cents per kilowatt hour. On the recommendation of the clerk, the village clerk, Doris Wickizer, I'm going to make a motion to accept the proposal due to the savings for the village and our electric bills through M&R Energy, the consultant for Orange County. In summary, the new agreement will be for a period of 24 months at 0.08913 cents per kilowatt hour locked in. This will result in an annual savings of $24,287 and a total 2-year savings of almost $50,000 for the village. May I have a second?
Second.
Further
Mayor.
discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Sir?
Yeah, just as far as the resolution is concerned, you're going to accept the proposal, and part of the motion would be to authorize you to execute any documents required to fulfill the agreement.
All right,
If you
say
wanna
that
ask for-
again for me so I don't get this wrong.
Make a motion,
So I'm going to make
To
a motion to accept this rate,
the proposal,
the proposal,
and to authorize the mayor
and to authorize the mayor
to execute or enter into such agreements.
enter into an agreement with the company that
It was
I
in the-
referenced up here, which
M&R.
M&R
M&R
Energy.
Energy, the consultant for Orange County. May I have a second?
Second.
Can it be Clerk Wickizer, or does it have to be the mayor? Can it be Clerk? Jean
Or-
had signed it?
That's
so-
fine. If they don't mind, yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Or
it's
to
fine.
allow the clerk to execute said agreement.
Sure.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next item, resolution of the Village Board of Cornwall and Hudson to set a time and place for a public hearing on an introductory local law to amend Chapter 155-48 to rescind the no parking areas on the west side of Churchill Street. What are we talking about? So, one of the first law, in fact, the first law that we passed when I was elected in 2021 was complaints on Churchill Street. Now, Churchill Street is on the back side of the Storm King Theater, so it runs adjacent to River Avenue and perpendicular to Spruce Street. And a lot of the residents there had an issue with the fact that when we get big snowfalls, and I know I just jinxed us, but when we get big snowfalls, which haven't happened for a while, they weren't able to back out of their driveways. So a lot of those homes open up on River Avenue, but the backside is where their driveways are. Well, when the village tried to do the right thing and put no parking signs down there, it now made it very difficult for families there that have visitors or have their kids come over and to find a parking spot. So Joe, correct me, what we're going to do is, this is the public hearing, or are we going to establish?
No, tonight we're just scheduling a public hearing for
Which is
next
going to
month.
happen in November.
Correct.
And I think the work session in November is on the 4th. And then the 11th would obviously be Veterans Day, so it would be the 18th. Is that correct for the business meeting, which is when the meeting would be and the public hearing?
Well, that's what I believe. The last item on the very last line on the agenda says that the village board work session is on the 18th.
No,
I
it's
don't
not.
know.
It's on
Okay.
Yeah, we're on the
Okay.
4th.
All right.
So, yeah.
So the third Monday is the 18th.
Yes, and that'll be when the public hearing will be.
Correct.
Okay.
Do you have the resolution there?
I do.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Only
so-
because you're designated lead agency and,
Yes.
okay.
So whereas the Village Board of the Village of Cornwall and Hudson wishes to amend Chapter 155-48 of the Village Code to permit parking on the west side of Churchill Street, and whereas the Village Board is empowered by the state to adopt such amendment of Chapter 155-48 pursuant to the Municipal Home Rule Law and the Vehicle and Traffic Law, and whereas the Village Board wishes to schedule a public hearing for November 18th, 2024 at 7:02 p.m. to consider an amendment to the village code and to consider the potential adverse environmental impacts of the same. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved that the village board hereby determines that it will be the lead agency with respect to the review of the proposed local law in accordance with the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SECRA, and Part 617 of the regulations implementing SECRA. Since there are no other agencies that have the authority to approve the project, and let it be further resolved, the village board preliminarily classifies the aforementioned action as an unlisted action under SECRA, and let it further be resolved that a public hearing be held by the village board on November 18, 2024 at 7:02 p.m. at Village Hall, located here at 325 Hudson Street in Cornwall, Hudson, New York, with respect to the proposed amendment to Chapter 155-48, and let it be further resolved that the village clerk is hereby authorized and directed to cause public notice of said hearing to be given as provided by law. May I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Schedule a
And-
public hearing for the online ethics form. Jimmy, what the heck is this? So in the past, the village had a rule by our code that stated that the ethics disclosure form, so all public officials and all village employees had to fill out what our holdings are, like, how many, apartment complexes in Manhattan do we own? We have to disclose that. We've always done it on a paper form. We're trying to enter the 21st century. So to do this, we have to pass Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, we have to pass a law that states that we can do this online.
Right. The text of our code from some years ago, presumes that all of these things are on paper. So we just need to make some modifications to allow people. It'll be an alternative. They can still file on paper if they wish to do so, but it will authorize the clerk to receive and keep on file these items electronically. So, as you say, we're trying to come into the 21st century, and that's why we would need to make some changes, textual changes to the code to do that.
So Professor Ross, John Ross, who is the chair of our ethics committee, boy, that's a pleasant job that you have to do, but he's been doing this for a while, had come to me and said, could we do this? So it just makes their lives easier, and it makes it more efficient. So here's the motion. So
Well,
whereas
I'm sorry, and it makes it easier for people to comply. That's
Makes it easier
the
for
goal.
people to
That's the
comply,
goal,
too.
right.
Yep. So whereas the village board has received a recommendation from the Board of Ethics to revise the village code to permit the filing and storage of annual conflict disclosure statements electronically, and whereas the village board believes that such an amendment will facilitate the filing, processing, and safekeeping of annual conflict disclosure statements, and whereas the village board wishes to set a time and place for a public hearing on an introductory local law to amend to Chapter 12. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved that the village board hereby determines it will be the lead agency with respect to the review of the proposed local law, hereafter referred to as the project, in accord with the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SECRA, and Part 617 of the regulations implementing SECRA, since there are no other agencies that have the authority to approve the project, and let it be further resolved, the village board hereby classifies the action as an unlisted action under SECRA, and let it be further resolved that a public hearing be held by the village board in order to receive comments and suggestions regarding the proposed local law permitting electronic filing of annual disclosure statements, and to receive any comments concerning the potential adverse environmental impacts of the proposed legislation in accord with SECRA on November 18, 2024 at 7 p.m. at Village Hall, located at 325 Hudson Street, Cornwall, Hudson, New York. And is further resolved that the village clerk is hereby authorized and directed to cause said public notice of said hearing to be given as provided by law. May I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I was going to say the environmental impact of not killing trees is probably a good thing. So I don't think SECRA is going to be an issue in this effort. So, okay. Next item. This is exciting as we're moving forward to the election season. So village elections are in March, obviously different from the towns and the states and the feds that are in November. So our election, we're going to set the polling location and time for the village election. I'm going to introduce the following resolution. I'm going to ask the village board to support this. So whereas the New York State election law mandates that each village must establish the polling place and hours that the polls will be open for village elections, and whereas the village board of Cornwall and Hudson, after due consideration hereon, has determined that the polling location and hours of voting in accordance with the standards set forth in New York State election law, now therefore let it be hereby resolved by the Village Board of Cornwall and Hudson that pursuant to New York State election law, section 15-104, subsection 3, the location of the polls for the election of March 18th, 2025, shall be the Village Hall located at 325 Hudson Street, Cornwall and Hudson, New York, and be it further resolved that the Village Board of the Village of Cornwall and Hudson, that public voting for the mayor and 2 village trustees for terms of 2 years will be conducted on March 18, 2025, with the polls remaining open from 6 a.m. until 9 p.m. May I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
One of the things I think I'm most proud of this board for is that we expanded the voting hours. Voting hours in the Village of Cornwall and Hudson for decades were from 12 p.m. to 9 p.m., and we expanded 2 years ago to 6 a.m. until 9 p.m. to allow people to come in before they go to work if they needed to. So 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. on March 18th, 2025, here in the village. All right. We also have our November election here as well. We handle that, but the Orange County Board of Elections will run those elections. We handle the ones in March. Am I correct on that?
Correct.
Okay. Joe, am I correct? Okay. All right. Full audit and single FEMA audits for 2024, 2025. I'm going to introduce the following resolution and ask this board to adopt. Whereas the village board wishes to exercise due diligence in its oversight of the village's finances, and whereas the village board wishes to continue its policy of conducting an annual full audit of the village's financial statements and a single audit of the FEMA grants. Now therefore be it hereby resolved that the village board authorizes Nugent and Hausler, PC, to perform a full audit of the Village of Cornwall and Hudson's financial statements for the fiscal year 2024, 2025 at a cost not to exceed $23,250 and $4,000 for the single audit of the FEMA grants. Okay, so what does that mean? So every 2 years, we're supposed to do the compilation. Every 4 years, we're supposed to do a full audit. So every 2 years, our auditors come in. I have asked that, we haven't had one of these probably done in over a decade, that the New York State Comptroller come down and take a look at the village and say, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? I think that's a healthy thing. They can do it when they want to, but I also think it's a good thing to ask for it, because I've been mayor for 3.5 years and they've never come down and done it. And they didn't do it in Mayor Coyne's term, which was 10 years. So that's 14 years where the comptroller has not done that. We do have our own private auditor come in. Every 2 years does a compilation, which is a smaller audit. Every 4 years does a more exhaustive deep dive into the audit process. So that is what we are looking to do. Why the FEMA grants? So in December of 2022, July 9th of 2023, December 11th and 12th of 2023, and January 11th of 2024, we got hit by 4 huge hyperlocalized storms. Obviously, some of those, not all of them, but some of those events, those weather events, those hyperlocalized weather events, we received monies from FEMA, which is the feds, and the USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture, which is also the feds. So again, how we spend those, what we use those monies for, that's why we want our auditors to look at it and make sure we're expending them in the right ways. Because they write you a check, but it's got to go to the right thing. So that's what the purpose of this is for. So whereas the village board wishes to continue its policy of conducting an annual full audit of the village's financial statements and a single audit of the current FEMA grants, now therefore be it hereby resolved, the village board authorized Nugent and Hausler, PC, to perform the full audit of the Village of Cornwall and Hudson's financial statements for the fiscal year 2024 and 2025 at a cost not to exceed $23,250 and $4,000 for the single audit of the FEMA grants. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay. Real property tax exemption resolution.
There's one item on the agenda that I wasn't sure if that was going to be later.
Is that on there for the change of terms?
The attorney
for
had
the
given us
trustees?
That's-
resolutions at the attorney-client session.
Okay.
If you want it.
Yeah,
Did you want to do it now? I don't know. I
I think so. Yeah,
because
because no, but you're right. Right, Joe? It is on there for handling right now.
I prepared it. I don't know if it's on the agenda. I don't know if I have.
It is on, I put it on the agenda, I just
Schedule a
didn't have
public hearing to
anything
change
about it.
trustee term limits from 2 to
Oh,
4
where is it?
years.
Okay, yeah, I skipped over that. Okay. So we're gonna do a resolution on that, Joe? We need that tonight?
To
Judge?
set the public
Yes.
hearing.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So I'm
this
gonna
is for the change of terms.
yeah,
Do you have
Alright.
one there in front of you?
yep. So
Okay.
let me, thank you, Bill. So let me explain what that is. So,
That's okay.
the village board has discussed this at length in open session, and the feeling of the village board is that the mayor's position should remain a 2-year term, but that the board of trustees, the other 4 folks on the board that have to run every 2 years, those terms should be changed to 4 years. Well, Jimmy, where are you getting that from? Well, in the town, the supervisor is a 2-year term, and the council members are 4-year terms. Well, Jimmy, how does that apply across New York State? New York State has 1,500 municipalities, towns, cities, and villages. There are 562 villages, and if you ask me how villages do it, every single one of them is different. Some have a 2-year at the top, 3-year terms for the board of trustees. Some of it have 3 and 3. Some of it have 4 and 4. Some of it have 2 and 4. There's no rhyme or reason. What we believe, and we're going to ask that this becomes something for the public to weigh in on. We're not going to, do this unilaterally. Is what we believe is that it probably makes sense to keep a little stability on the board of trustees and not have the trustees run every 2 years. So it would be a 4-year term, just like it is in the town, but keeping the mayor's spot at 2 years. So that's what we're looking to do. The public hearing will give the public an opportunity to come in and say yay or nay on that. And then this would be on the ballot in March. So village residents will have the opportunity to vote, Jimmy, this makes no sense, or we agree, we think this is a good idea. You'll have a chance to vote for this, but we're going through the process. Joe, am I missing anything on that?
No, interestingly though, normally you'll have a public hearing on a introductory local law, and the public can come and give their comments, and usually, like we're probably going to do with the tree preservation law, you make your changes and you do it again. And we do this by local law because it will be a change to our code. But interestingly, people get 2 opportunities. First, they get the opportunity to come to make their comments on the local law,
And then they get to vote on it.
and then they get to vote on it. So I have had situations where people don't like the law as introduced, and then the board's answer is, okay, we hear you, but we're going to adopt it anyway because you're going to have to vote on it later. So it's a little bit of an unusual nuance. So, yeah, so we'll hold the public hearing. People can come and comment on the local law. If the board chooses to adopt it, the local law will not go into effect until the referendum passes.
So that's the important thing. So nobody sitting on this board is going to have their term extended. You will have to run again to possibly get a 4-year term if the local law is, we put it on the ballot and people vote for it and say we think it's a good idea. No one here's term is going to get extended until they run again, correct?
Although, question, yeah, you're going to say.
Yeah, but, and the way it's structured under the New York State Village Law, if it's approved, the change in term will not commence until after the referendum and after the law is adopted. Right, so no one's term will be extended. It will go into effect thereafter.
But it's on the ballot March, what did we just said it? March
Right.
18th,
Yeah.
2025.
Correct.
So the first election that would have that term in place would be the 26th election,
Correct,
not 25.
correct. That would be a much easier way to say what I just said. Thank you,
Yeah.
Trustee Brain.
So our
why they
thought
don't pay me the
process
big
on that,
bucks.
and none of the trustees came and asked about this. This is something that I felt, I spent 2 years as a trustee, I'm going into my 4th year as mayor. I always believe you need to be able to cut the head of the snake off at the top. But for the board to run every 2 years, the disruption of that, I think 4 years is the right amount of time where, I just think it makes sense. I think what the town has in place works better. Supervisor is a 2-year term, Council members are a 4-year term. All I'm asking for here is for the village residents. We have 3,000 residents, 2,100 registered voters. They never all turn out, of course, but since the mayor is going to be on the ticket in March, we usually get 1,000 people to turn out. I'm just going to ask that people consider it. I think it makes sense. Keep the mayor at 2 and extend the trustees to 4-year terms. It makes sense. And again, in the village where you have such a small pool to draw from, getting people on the board to stay on the board and not have them continually run every 2 years. Like I said, keep the mayor's position 2 years, let these go to 4. But the public will get an opportunity to vote. Did I cover that?
And they'll get an opportunity to hit us up if we schedule the public hearing.
Yeah, absolutely. So they can
Schedule
bring their grievances.
Do it.
Yes. All right, so that's that. So the real property,
No, got to set the public hearing.
I got to set that. Where is that? So is this it? All right, here we go. So whereas discussions have arisen concerning the potential benefits of extending or modifying the term lengths for village trustees to enhance stability and continuity in leadership, and whereas the village recognizes the importance of ensuring that the governance structure meets the evolving needs of the community, and whereas the village is committed to transparency and community engagement in its decision-making processes, and whereas the village board of the Village of Cornwall and Hudson wishes to pose a mandatory referendum on the question of whether to amend Chapter 15 of the Village Code to add an Article 3, which would govern the terms of office for village public officers, and whereas if the referendum passes, Article 3 would establish a 4-year term of office for elected village trustees, and whereas the village board is empowered by the state to adopt such amendment of Chapter 15 subject to a referendum pursuant to the municipal home rule law and the village law, and whereas a public hearing will allow for a comprehensive discussion of the implications and benefits of changing the term of office, and whereas the village board wishes to schedule a public hearing for November 18th, 2024 at 7:04 p.m. to consider an amendment to the village code and to consider the potential adverse community impacts of the same. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved, the village board hereby determines it'll be the lead agency with respect to the review of the proposed local law in accordance with the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SECRA, and Part 617 of the regulations implementing SECRA, since there are no other agencies that have the authority to approve the project, and let it be further resolved, the village board preliminarily classifies the aforementioned action as an unlisted action under SECRA, and let it be further resolved that a public hearing to be held by the village board on November 18, 2024 at 7:04 p.m. at the Village Hall located at 325 Hudson Street, Cornwall, Hudson, New York, 12520, with respect to the proposed amendment to Chapter 155-48, and let it be further resolved, the village clerk is hereby authorized and directed to cause public notice of said hearing to be given as proposed by law. May I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next item, real property tax exemption resolution. So, every year, the village sends an appeal to the town of New Windsor and the town of Cornwall for property tax exemptions on our water properties. This has been in my ballywick for a long time now. So we have a property on Riley Road that's in the town of New Windsor. We pay property tax on that property, and I have no problem with that, because we don't provide water other than to the students from New Windsor that attend the Cornwall Central School District schools. We don't provide any services to New Windsor residents. So we send an appeal letter to them. They deny it. That makes sense to us. What doesn't make sense is the fact that we have properties in the town, like the Taylor Road well field, and we get charged property taxes. And every year, because I've gone back and looked at it, they've only been online for the last couple of years, but every year I've had the village clerks go back and look at it. The town takes a vote to deny our claim for property tax exemptions. Jimmy, what does that equal? $25,000, $31,000. Well, with a water department and a water system that delivers water for the greater Cornwall area, 13,000 residents, businesses, and residences, we have a $3 million budget. That $31,000 a year then gets tacked on about $157,000 from the Cornwall School District, and they have a $70 million a year budget. That rubs me the wrong way, and I've appealed to the town, and again, they've got to look out for town residents, but the water system looks out after village residents and town residents, and if we pay that $31,000 and the $157,000, that is $200,000 a year in a $3 million budget. So, do I continue to send a letter plaintively appealing to the town to waive this? Orange County waives it. They don't charge us county taxes on our water properties, but the town does. And so, because the town does, the school district does it as well. And you can say, as people have argued, well, you're taking money from one pocket and you're putting it in the other, or you're still paying school taxes. But the school system not only takes care of the village students, the town students, they also take care of Woodbury and New Windsor. They make up the Cornwall Central School District. So my argument is, why are we being charged to deliver services to the town and to the school district there? So we're going to essentially do what we normally do, but one of the things the village board is looking at, and will probably make a decision on in November, is to change the water rates. So the village board recently took out a section of our code that says that anybody outside the village of Cornwall and Hudson had to pay 80% plus what our water rates were. We just had never enforced it. So we've been charging village residents $12 per 1,000 gallons, and we've been charging town residents $16 per 1,000 gallons. The school district gets the same rate. So their facilities in the village, they pay $12 per 1,000 gallons. The village rate at the admin building and at Cornwall and Hudson Elementary School, everything in the town pays the town rate, which is $16 per 1,000 gallons. That is 33% above the village rate, which in 1974, the law was changed to require us to charge 80% above the village rate. We've just never done it. So I want the town to waive it, and I want the school district to waive it. And if they don't, what we'll simply do is we'll vote as a village board, and we'll determine that we're going to charge different rates. So we're going to go ahead and pass this right now, which says that, we're going to appeal to the town and the school system. They're going to look at it and dismiss it like they do every single year, and the village board is going to act next November. So, whereas the village of Cornwall and Hudson is the owner of real property in the town of Cornwall and the town of New Windsor, County of Orange, identified in the tax map as follows. In the town of Cornwall, sections 32, 4, 29, 29, and 31, blocks 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, and lots 17, 56, 50, 54, and 15, and in New Windsor, section 65, block 1, and lot 20. And whereas the above real property is devoted solely to public use and part of the village-owned water system as the sites for water wells, plant treatment, chlorinator, and watershed, and whereas the real property tax law section 406 subsection 3 provides the authority for each taxing district in which municipally owned property used in such manner is located to grant a whole exemption from real property taxes levied by that taxing district, and whereas such exemption for the village of Cornwall and Hudson water supply site real property will provide a direct and immediate benefit for the taxpayers and water users of the village of Cornwall and Hudson, which means the greater Cornwall area where we deliver water to, and which would enhance real property ownership, encourage industrial and commercial development, and exemplify a spirit of intermunicipal cooperation between the County of Orange and this village. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Village Board of the Village of Cornwall and Hudson on behalf of the Village of Cornwall and Hudson, its taxpayers, water system users, and citizens hereby petition the County of Orange, which has already agreed to do this, the town of Cornwall, which denies it every year, and the town of New Windsor, which understandably denies it every year, to grant a whole exemption from state, county, and town real property taxes commencing for calendar year 2025 for the parcels of real property identified above and any additional properties as may be identified for which an exemption may be appropriate, and be it further resolved that the mayor and the attorney for the village are authorized to attend such meeting, the Orange County Legislature and committees thereof, as may be appropriate to aid and assist in the deliberations and this petition by that body. May I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Moving on. Water employee probationary status. This is something that the water superintendent brought to me. We got to do a better job of this. When the village hires employees, there's usually a 6-month, a 12-month, or an 18-month probationary period. Obviously, our police officers, we insist that they do the longest term possible. Our water department employees, our CSEA employees, like the highway department folks, a shorter period of time. It could be 6 months, it could be a year. 18 months is at the high end of that. But when somebody comes off that probationary status, we need to acknowledge it, because first of all, it's a hallmark and an achievement. We need to acknowledge it. So whereas the village board wishes to exercise due diligence in its oversight of the village's employment practices, and whereas water maintenance worker Mr. Jason Sargent, Sergeant, has fulfilled his 52-week, 1-year probationary period on October 8, 2024. Now, therefore, be it hereby resolved that the village board authorizes Mr. Sargent's employment status to be changed from probationary to permanent in accordance with the Orange County Civil Service rules. May I have a second?
Second.
Michael, anything to add?
No, I'll just state that Mr. Sargent came to us from another municipality with experience, as well as having a water treatment license already in hand, and he's been a valuable asset.
I concur. All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Special event at the bandstand. This is a request from the not the business owner, but from the manager, maitre d', chief of staff of Pepitini's and Storm King Lounge, and they had requested a special event application for an event at the bandstand, which is right across the street from Pepitini's as well as Storm King Lounge. And the event is a suicide awareness and prevention event. So there'll be a band there that would play for a few hours in the afternoon, so nothing late at night. And I'm gonna go ahead and read the resolution as is. So, village. What did you say, Bill? What are we calling it? Village.
Maitre d' and business manager.
And business manager Natalie Kane has submitted a special event application, and whereas the village board wishes to support the proposed suicide prevention and bereavement fundraiser at the village bandstand on November 17th. What day is that? Is that a Saturday or Sunday?
Sunday.
It is a Sunday. Sunday, November 17th, 2024, from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. 2 p.m. in the afternoon to 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Now, therefore,
Says
be
2
it.
to 4.
Yeah, 4
That's what I thought it was, but this says.
Cleanup.
Um,
So it's a little bit of a gray area because of the setup.
Yeah, let's do 1 to 5.
Okay.
That's fair. They're only going to play music for 2 hours,
Yeah, that's
but let's do 1 to 5. So from
actual
1
event
p.m.
The
Yeah.
actual event's 2 to 3.
Okay. Let's do 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. for setup and deconstruction, but the band will play from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Now, therefore, be it hereby resolved that the village board approves this special event request as submitted. May I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next, accept the resignation of a part-time police officer with regrets. So I'm going to do some following resolution and ask the board to move for its adoption. Whereas part-time police officer James Lynch, LYNCH has been a valuable member of the Cornwall and Hudson Police Department, and whereas Police Officer James Lynch has submitted a resignation letter effective October 9th of 2024, now therefore be it hereby resolved, the Village Board accepts with regret the resignation of Officer Lynch in accordance with the Orange County Civil Service rules. Chief, he is accepting a full-time position with the Sullivan County Sheriff's Office.
That's correct.
Did I get that correct?
I believe today he got sworn in.
Yeah. And we are accepting this with regrets, correct?
That's correct. He was an asset to the department. He's been with us for about 3.5 years.
He's done a good job. All right, may I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All right, then the Village Board accepts with regret the resignation of Officer Lynch in accordance with Orange County Civil Service rules. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Authorize the attorney to prepare requests for proposals, RFPs for an auditor. So I'm going to introduce the following resolution and ask the board to adopt it. So whereas the Village Board wishes to exercise due diligence in its oversight of the village's finances, and whereas the Village Board wishes to continue its policy of conducting audits of the village's financial statements, which is important, now therefore be it hereby resolved, the Village Board authorizes Village Attorney Joseph McKay to prepare a request for proposal, or RFP, for a village auditor. May I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next, local law to amend Village of Cornwall and Hudson Village Code, Chapter 153, entitled Tree Preservation Tree Law. Okay, so
This is a public hearing. Do you want to make a motion to open the public hearing?
wasn't it already open?
Well,
Are
it's
we extending
continued,
it?
it's continued.
Yes.
So it's continued to tonight, and we're going to kick it over again.
So what Counselor just said, so we are going to continue this into November. And the reason being, I hate kicking the can down the road. However, we want to get this right. The town has already approved theirs. Ours is modeled on theirs, but we're getting into the nitty-gritty of how this is going to apply to small parcels of property in the village. We want to get it right. We're working closely. Trustee Carnwright is a member of the Cornwall Conservation Advisory Council and is working closely with them. They're the ones that came up with the original tree preservation law, but we're going to extend it until November to give the public more time to look at it and to give the board more time to discuss it and deal with it.
Right.
So, Joe, what do I need to do? Just say,
Well, I don't know if anyone from the public wants to be heard. Just make a motion to open the continued public hearing.
okay, so I'm going to make a motion to open the continued public hearing on the tree preservation law.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then offer anybody
Yep.
an opportunity to
Right.
speak. And obviously, Mary already spoke early,
Correct.
but, yeah.
Correct.
Anybody else wish to speak on the tree preservation law? Seeing no one?
I'll just mention to Mary Ann's comments earlier that the current draft law, proposed law, does include a threshold for 1 and 2 family properties that was not in the prior, as suggested by the code enforcement officer, it was not included in prior drafts, and it would not just apply to every single 1 and 2 family home where somebody wants to cut down a tree, but that there would be within the statute a threshold that would conform to the kinds of single family lots where you might have a large property and a lot of trees and somebody goes through and cuts down a lot of trees. So we're looking at how to phrase that and make sure that it's included in the law.
Right, and just one little nitpick. It wasn't included in the original draft. We're up to, and the public maybe should know this, we're on the 6th draft. So we're not really just kicking it down the road. As the mayor said, we're really trying to get it right. The original draft mirrored the town's local law, and there was an exemption for single and 2 family residences. So during our discussion, we said, well, we're trying to balance it. Don't want to be the tree police on the one hand, but we want to make sure that we can capture concerns and situations like Miss Odell pointed out.
Yep.
So this draft, most recent draft, the 6th draft, contains language that's suggested by the code enforcement officer in response to a concern that was raised by the board and other people, to capture these events that we want to stop. So that's included in this new draft. There are some other modifications. There were choices among two definitions that would go in the code, basically posed to the code enforcement officer. He chose one, so now that's in the final draft, and some other amendments and clarifications that were suggested by Trustee Brain. So, and since the last meeting, we have all of those things, and we have comments from the planning board as well. So this draft, since the last meeting, includes all of those things that we've just discussed. So my recommendation is that we post this new revised draft to the village website so that people can look at the revised draft. It will give the board members some time to look at this 1-2 family home capture provision and see if the language needs to be revised. And then people can come back in November and let us know how they think we've done. So that would be, I would suggest a motion to continue this public hearing to the November meeting and to authorize and direct the clerk to post this on the website for people to review.
But not in the paper.
No, it doesn't go, no, we don't need to have a public hearing notice published. We did that.
So essentially, to boil this down with, and Joe, apologies, but with that, taking the legalese out of this, the town has approved this, which basically says if you have a single home property or a mother-daughter, two-family home on a property, we're not the tree police. So you can do what you want. However, if you have a big piece of property in the village, whether it's up on the mountain or out Bayview, if you got a big piece of property and you own more than the quarter acre I own on Wood Avenue, can you clear cut trees? And that's what we're struggling with, because I don't want to tell Mrs. McGillicuddy you can't cut down a lilac bush if you want to cut it down. But at the same token, if you're taking down 50 or 100 or in some instances 1,000 trees, that impacts everybody. So the town law, which protects us against development, we don't want to stymie people doing work on their own property, but if you own a big piece of property and you're looking to clear cut, that's what we're trying to, tell me if I'm wrong, that's what we're trying to protect against.
Without agreeing that any of those things bear legal weight, that's yeah. We're looking for the sweet spot.
Right.
Between, like we said, if somebody has a large lot with a lot of trees on it and, wants to cut down all of those trees, that's going to be a public impact that, the code should address.
So people that are
But we're looking
fearful-
for that.
Yeah.
That sweet spot.
We're trying to find that out, and that's why we're having the public hearings, so somebody can come in and argue to us and say, no, you need to let that happen. But our concern is, in the village, we have larger properties than the town. Not entirely so, but up on the mountain, and we have larger green spaces, and we're just trying to figure out a way to protect those green spaces without telling Mrs. McGillicuddy what you can do on your property. I'm trying to find that balance and that sweet spot. So hopefully we'll keep it open until November, Joe, and we'll discuss amongst the board the latest tweaks to this. We'll make sure that it's available on the village website in case anybody wants to go on there and see what we're doing, and then we'll revisit this in November. Did I
Correct.
get that right?
That's correct.
Does this need to be read? Your resolution?
No,
That's
that's,
gonna
that's the
extend it.
resolution to adopt it.
Yeah,
That's
we're
not-
just going to extend it.
Oh,
That's
no,
not
yeah,
happening.
no, that we're not going to do tonight.
We should close the public hearing if there's no more public comment.
No, we're
No,
going to keep
well-
the public
Oh,
hearing
I'm sorry.
open until November. Yeah, so, okay.
Got it.
All right, next item. Are we,
continuing public-
so we're going to adopt the EV charging
It's
station
okay with
contract
me, and
tonight?
I have wording that I've written,
Do
which
you
I
have
will-
it?
I'll defer.
Do you want to
the-
read it?
Doris, do you have the contract in front of you? You have a printout?
Yep. Bill, I'm going to let you handle.
Brilliant. Thank you. After collecting quotes from 5 providers of electric vehicle charging installation, and after many months of discussion with the board, talking about doing that in a couple of locations, and changing our scope a little bit to reduce it slightly, we are at, we've all reviewed all the quotes that we've received, and We've chosen a vendor that we haven't voted yet on this, but essentially we're all in agreement on a vendor that we would like to have do this. 2 locations, one in the municipal lot adjacent to the next to the elementary school, essentially by the bandstand, but in the farthest space from the bandstand, adjacent to a convenient central Hudson pole, and then also down at Donahue Memorial Park on the edge of the south parking lot close to the yacht club. And the exact design of these 2 installations will be, sorted out, the exact position of these, I should say. But they'll each have 2 connection points. It's going to be one stanchion. If you're familiar with the town hall, there are 2 of these things. It's going to be one of those, where there's 2 there, there's going to be one at each of the 2 locations in the village. We received a bunch of quotes. Most of them were pretty close together. But one of them stood out for the sort of quality and responsiveness of the quoter. They were all pretty responsive and good. Integra Energy is the one that we would like to go with, and so I will read. And let me just make sure I'm going to give an approximate number at the end. So please bear with me on that one. But I've written this, and Joe, please, by all means, attorney for the village, correct me if I say anything wrong.
I'm listening.
I move that the village board authorize Mayor Galliano to execute the contract with Integra Energy for installation, project management, and software and data provision for electronic vehicle chargers in 2 locations, per the quotes provided by Integra in compliance with the general municipal law and with our procurement policy, and in consideration of the New York State EV Make Ready program incentives administered through Central Hudson to defray a portion of the associated costs, which incentives will be managed by the vendor. And the total for the 2 should be $20,142, including the anticipated incentives. Pre-incentive, that number would be roughly $44,000, but the incentives that come in cut that down substantially. So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? We've had a lot of discussion.
We have had a lot of discussion. Much.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, 4 ayes.
Brilliant. There you go.
Okay,
There's 2 separate documents. They gave us 2 quotes, one for each of the 2 locations. So
but we're going with
we'll talk about
Integra.
it after.
I have a sidebar question about the charging stations. If you park in one and you're not charging, can you be ticketed for that?
We can decide that, but I would think
Yeah, so the town has a
So
little.
you can decide that on your
Yeah,
own.
you could. I mean, I would think that it would probably, we need to get people, make them aware of what's going on and just kind of do it through gentle cajoling first. And then if it becomes an issue, the same person just decides, I'm going to park there and I don't have an electric vehicle.
I just think about drop off and pick up at COH and,
Well, drop off and pick up is fine, but if somebody's parked there and they
Right,
go inside and.
understandable, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a great question. So, I mean, it's something that we're gonna have to, Chief, we wanna hand that to you, right? So, when somebody parks in one of the electric charging stations and they don't have an electric vehicle, should I send the code enforcement officer after him? He said no.
No.
He goes, I'm gonna handle the lights in front of Village Hall.
we don't have a
What if
prohibition
they
in
try to
code.
charge their car?
Well,
I will say that and I believe I've said this in a public forum before, that just.
I've seen people parking in there, by the way. People do
At
park.
Town Hall?
Yes,
Town
they do.
Hall.
no.
Yeah.
Chargers, I've seen.
No,
I've
no,
seen
they're-
people
Alright.
charging.
You've
They have
seen
enough
them park
Okay,
there?
yes.
Well,
Uh,
how
the,
dare they?
the intention of these is.
For the, on Wednesdays at the
They don't-
farmer's market.
When it's
All right,
crowded.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
I
I
see.
get. Well, if they don't have a hybrid Jeep, they better not be parking there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The intention of these spots is not to provide sort of residential charging for people in the village, because most people who have an electric vehicle will park it at their house and plug it into the wall.
Most people.
I don't know. I don't know. But it's for people who are going to a place where they may be parking for a couple of hours to make use of an amenity in the village and then moving on to another location. So if you drive up from the city to go kayaking, you can park your electric car there, go kayaking, come back, you've got a little top off on your charge. Similarly, if you come to go to one of the restaurants or to go to some event at the bandstand, You park your car, charge it up a little bit, and then move on to your next location. So that's kind of the basic idea. But in a pinch, if your charger is out at home and you live in the village and you want to get your car charged, you can drive down there.
Anybody want to know what kind of revenue this brings into the village? So if you watch the town meeting, and they only have those 2 charging stations there, they're averaging right now $3,000 a month.
A
No, a
year,
month.
I think.
Oh, I thought it was a month.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's
Well,
what I
we-
heard at the
and-
meeting.
And we do set the price, by the way.
Yeah, we
so-
set the price, and we'll do a similar price point to whatever the town's doing. I thought it was 3,000 a month, but I will double check that. But I think it is. I think it's
Yeah,
3,000
I
a
saw it in the
month.
paper. I thought it was
Yeah.
a year. I hope so.
Well,
Hey,
Yeah.
whatever. I'm not parking there if it's 3,000.
all right, so that's that. All right, so we passed that. We're good on that. All right. So I want to do a quick shout out to Trustee Paleota, who has taken on the Hometown Heroes and the lighted snowflakes for the village. So the town and the village are working together on Hometown Heroes. So November 11th, the plan is to roll out our first 15 of, people that will be honored by the Hometown Heroes program. There are strict restrictions and guidelines for how this works. Nobody on the village board or on the town council is going to have their pictures put up there, but the way this works, the Newburgh Rotary Club is handling this. No good deed goes unpunished here. But what we're looking to do is to unveil this on November 11th for Veterans Day. There'll be 8 in the town along Main Street, and then 7 in the village along Hudson Street, which is our Main Street. When the program grows and develops, we will do other streets from Dock Hill Road to Bayview to River Avenue, whatever. But to start this, November 11th, we're looking to roll out our initial 15, 8 in the town, 7 in the village. The other thing that I asked Trustee Paleota to work on was to identify utility poles in the village from 2nd Street all the way down to Village Pizza, which is kind of our Main Street corridor for secular holiday decorations. So we're not putting something up that's, a creche or something like that. These are going to be snowflakes, similar to what the town is doing. So we have to have drops put on utility poles. She has been engaged with Central Hudson, and I want to thank Dave Carnwright for helping in that as well. But there will be 15 lighted snowflakes in the village from 2nd Street all the way down to the lower village, which will be lit. Right now, we're planning on November 29th, which is Black Friday. We're hoping to do this. In concert with the town to light up Black Friday, which is the biggest shopping day of the year. It's the Friday, that Thanksgiving weekend, and basically to throw the switch a day before the village does the tree lighting, which will be November 30th. So we got 15 poles. RPC Electric is the vendor that we're using. The town also used them. It's a local contractor. They've already been up on the poles to do this, to get everything set up, and our plan is to do this on November 29th. What to add to that, Lori Beth?
It's going very smoothly. I'm
I don't
not
know how
saying
you did it.
We're just, hanging on for RPC to get up there and put the brackets up. And once that's done, I'll feel much better.
Yeah. So the
yeah.
brackets she's talking about are the poles that'll be on the utility poles, the brackets to put the banners. Do we have one there? Sure. Megan? Can we show folks what it's going to look like? All right. So this is what the Hometown Heroes banner are going to look like. And again, we're doing this in the beginning for veterans. We're also going to expand this to public servants like police and firefighters that need to be recognized as well. But for the initial outlay, this program is just for military veterans, and Megan is going to show you what one of these are going to look like.
Oh, very nice.
Is this the size that they're going to be?
That's the size they're going to be. So there'll be 2 brackets on the poles. Our plan right now, and again, this could change, but our plan right now is Memorial Day to Veterans Day. So Memorial Day to Veterans Day
Oh.
as far as,
Show it on
as
the
far as when they would be up. And then we can also do this
You want to come
for,
up and show it to
Yeah.
the camera?
so, yeah.
You're gonna get me in trouble with
Yeah.
this one.
That's all right.
Joy, joy.
But yeah, but you can, if you go through Highland Falls, if you go through Fishkill, if you go through the village of Montgomery, if you go, Marlboro, you'll see them all over. We're just behind the times and we're trying to get this business done. But one of the things that I think is important, and again, this program is just for military veterans, but we have, line of duty deaths, whether it's Ken Kumple, who died on 9/11, who was a town resident, or Thomas Ringlehan, who was a Storm King Engine number 2 volunteer, who is a line of duty death. We had a police officer, line of duty death in the village. We want to include them as well, but we just have to roll this program out. So the village will start with 7, it will expand, and this year, on November 29th, I'm hoping that we can roll this out with the town where we just throw the switch and everything on Main Street and on Hudson Street will be lit up with snowflakes and will really kind of bring the holiday spirit for everybody. I cover that, all right?
Yes, but you have to pass a resolution to transfer the budget line.
That's the next item. So we have to move some money over from our contingency line to this snowflake addition. So where is it? Okay. So I'm gonna move that, I'm gonna ask the board to,
Megan.
We're moving it from the consultant line.
it says increase Alpha 8510.4 community beautification in the amount of $20,000. No?
Yeah, it's two authorized.
Increasing the.
All right, which one do you want me to go off of? This? All right, so I'm gonna ask the village board to authorize the following budget line transfer. Decrease Alpha 1620.410 and the consultant line in the amount of $20,000 and transfer it to community beautification, and then increase Alpha 8510.4 community beautification in the amount of $20,000 for the purchase of the snowflake lights. Now, that includes, and it's the same price the town paid, that includes the price of the snowflakes themselves. It also includes the drops on each utility pole, which worked out to be about $1,100 per pole. So Jimmy, what does that mean? That means that they're going to allow us to run an electrical outlet down the side of the utility pole that we can plug in every year. And what we'd like to do is have these be lighted on November 29th, Black Friday, and stay lit because they're not Christmas, they're not Hanukkah, they're not anything specific. They're snowflakes. Keep them lit through February because that's the gloom period around here. So December, January, February, and then we pull them down, we put them away, and we bring them out next year. So that's the plan. All right, may I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. What's next? What do you want me-
Housing.
pro-housing community. We're not gonna vote on it tonight. I've taken a straw poll for the pro-housing community program. I believe the village has the votes to pass this, which is a aspirational program that says that we will seek to provide more housing. It's a certain percentage of what we have in the village. We have probably 400 homes. And if we do this, and I know that some people say 1% or 3%, it just depends. But right now, the numbers that we're looking at are 1% per year. We already have that between the apartment complex down Hudson Street, some other plans in place right now with stuff that's in front of the planning board. I don't think it's going to be a big issue, and people go, well, if you pass something called a pro-housing community, that means you're going to clear cut all the green spaces, and we're going to put in high-density housing. That's not what the program is. So I want the village board everybody to have an opportunity to continue to research it, but I plan to vote on this in November. The town has already voted on it and passed it. I'm comfortable with it. I spoke to our attorney about it.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes,
They actually tabled this.
the town did,
Yeah, they took it off the agenda completely.
and the reason was?
They did not have all the votes. There was a lot of discussion still to be had, and that's what I wish that we would do also.
Okay. well, we're not doing any voting until November, but this gives me time to reach out to the supervisor and find out what the reason why it was tabled. Again, my feeling on it, and it's just one person, because I'm one vote on a board of 5, is that it is an aspirational goal and it doesn't lock you into anything. And could New York State down the road require us to do certain things? Yes, but this program, as I've read it and council has explained to me, doesn't lock us into anything. But I understand why people may have concerns about it. So I'll reach out to the town about that. But thank you for that, Lori Beth. I thought they had already passed it. Okay. All right. Next item. We already did the Hometown Heroes banner program. Duncan Avenue, Hudson Street traffic concerns. This has been going on since I was a trustee on the board back in 2019, which are concerns that at the bottom of Duncan Avenue, because of the way the traffic patterns are, that people that live on Duncan that come down the hill, and Trustee Carnwright used to live there and knows it well, it's a dangerous spot to try to pull out. The concerns are, what can you do there? We can't put a traffic light in. We've got enough signage there, but putting in a mirror, if we did that across the street, it makes it difficult because you'd have to take away parking spaces. Parking spaces are precious. This board has already taken away 3 parking spaces since I've been mayor on Hudson Street, and we have businesses there. Obviously, public safety is the number one concern. But working backward from that, I've met with several people that live on Duncan, and their arguments are valid. Jimmy, what are you waiting on? Does somebody have to get, T-boned as they're coming down Hudson Street, trying to get across? Come down Duncan, trying to get across Hudson Street before you do something. The problem is that there have been traffic studies done there, and there's been like one minor fender bender since like the 90s. Now, again, you say that, and then somebody goes, okay, so what happens if next week somebody dies there? Are you satisfied that that's not an issue? Other than completely reworking that intersection, and that intersection has been that way since the 19th century, I don't know what to do. And Dave, I know you and I have talked about that when Mayor Coyne was here and Jim Kane was here, and we talked about it, but I don't know what to do. But the residents have real concerns and are asking us, what can we do? Do you have feelings on that one way or the other, as somebody that lived most of their life on Duncan Avenue?
One of the things is you're at it's a state road. It's
218.
Yes. And that right there is an obstacle right there, because they've already said that they've looked into various things, like you said, a possible mirror across the street, things like that, and they were not receptive to anything like that.
Yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts? I know, I
This is
feel
a flashback to 2021. We had the same discussion.
the same
with another
discussion.
trustee
I
who
know.
was on Duncan. Again, I would go to the record. I mean, I'm not a traffic engineer, and I don't play one, but my understanding is that a lot of people's control over their car, a lot of people slow down when they see a complex situation. And in my driving experience through the Village Square, it's a place where people act more cautiously. And I feel like when you're creeping out on Duncan, you're looking very carefully both ways. You're trying to make sure you don't get hit. When you're coming down, that might be a little more risky to the unfamiliar driver who approaches that intersection, definitely. But for people who live here, I feel like I know I slow down when I get to that area. It's more densely populated. And I feel like that natural reflex of people is something that has prevented any kind of accident over time. So I don't know.
You got feelings?
It seems like,
Because you're at
If
the
there was
elementary
a
school all
no-
the time.
yeah, if there was coming up from River Road, trying to make a left,
River Avenue.
River Avenue, sorry, onto Hudson Street. That seems to really confuse people, like how to do that, and then coming out of Duncan and how to stay. I mean, to me, it's clear and it's clearly marked, and I understand it. But I
we
see
live
a
here.
ton of people who get very confused. I'm very grateful for the new crossing guard that's there. He is risking his life every day down there, but he's helping the kids cross, and he's really important. But I mean, like short of maybe making that a no left turn, which would ruin my life, I don't know. I can't think of anything
You would have to
else.
completely rework that
Yeah.
intersection where Dr. Seitz's building is.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And again, it's, you don't want to feel so impotent that you go, there's nothing we can do. But to Bill's point, or Dave's point, that is a state road. And this kind of brings me into my next piece, which is, 218. So 218 opened. We had a meeting here last week that Kurt Hahn conducted for the Office of Emergency Management. I'm very thankful that the town, again, we pay taxes to the town, but the town found money in the budget to give Kurt Hahn, who's been doing this job for a decade with no budget, but actually gave him a budget this year. So Kurt had the third annual Storm King Roundtable, and he basically brought DOT, New York State Department of Transportation, West Point firefighters, the Town of Highlands Police Department, the Town of Cornwall Police Department, the Village of Cornwall and Hudson Police Department, West Point folks, local legislators that, Legislator Tautle and Legislator Hines that have this area in regards to the opening of 218. So there were representatives from Senator Skoufis's office, Assemblyman Ekus was here, the town supervisor was here, I was here, Trustee Brain attended the meeting as well, and basically to talk about 218 being open. And I know there's been some discussion about closing 218 or people looking to close 218 and saying, hey, turn it into a walking path, right? Can't see that happening anytime soon because you need the low road. In the old days, we called it the high road, which is 9W, the low road, which was 218. You need that, and I know that 218 closes for much of the winter because you get the ice slides, you get, when there's heavy rainfall, when you get trees that come down, it closes all the time. But it's necessary and open because it helps the village because people from West Point come through, and that's a great opportunity for us in the Commerce Department. Having said that, on the weekends, and I went out there last weekend to sit at a residence house, the last house on the right by the gate. So the way that it works is the village owns all the way up to the gate that opens up onto 218. The town owns half of 218 to West Point, and the town of Highlands owns the other half. The village only picks it up from the gate. They changed the speed limit from 55, blessedly, down, the state did this, to 35. So 218 now on the mountain is 35 miles per hour. But when you hit the gate in the village, it now drops down to 30 miles per hour. Well, it's an issue because, again, I sat there for about 45 minutes with the resident in their front yard and listened and watched what happened between the motorcycles and the car clubs, and they're all online right now, and they say, hey, 218's open. It's a beautiful drive. We're opening up now for the fall with all the leaves changing, the whole 9 yards. But as they're coming down the mountain, they're not traveling 35 miles per hour, and when they hit the village, they ain't dropping down to 30. And the noise, and it's a tough thing right now. Again, we don't own it. The only thing we own is from the gate onto Bayview. So we can police that. We can put signs there. The chief and I have talked about potentially putting some more radar signs up there. We've already got one on Bayview right now to try to get people to slow down. But that's the situation that we're in. To Bill's point or Dave's point, it is a state road. We don't patch it. We don't pave it. I argued with DOT why we have not gotten that repaved because it was supposed to have been done the year I got elected here in 2021. It was on the calendar to be paved, and it hasn't happened yet. It probably ain't gonna happen until I'm long gone. But from that gate all the way down Hudson Street, out Academy, that's 218, that's not village property. We don't plow it in the wintertime. We're not supposed to patch it, even though we've been doing emergency patches because people are bottoming their cars out on 218 trying to come around. So am I making excuses? No. I just tied in the part about the Storm King roundtable. And why is that? Because over the next two construction seasons, So until Thanksgiving, and then they'll shut down and they'll start again in April. And that April till August or September, they're going to close 9W down to one lane. That's going to impact mostly the first responders. We want police, we want firefighters to be able to get there, but the mountain is going to get closed, the high road, 9W, down to one lane. What does that mean? That means people trying to avoid that mess, especially if there's an accident, God forbid, are going to go where? They're going to go to 218, and that's going to push them into the village. Brings us more traffic. Yeah, that's good for business, but again, we've got a policing issue. We've got a roadway wear and tear issue because that road should have been paved 4 years ago and it still hasn't been paid. So just something to consider. So we are meeting with them. Yes, sir. No, go ahead. I'm going to.
One lane each way or one
Yes.
lane period?
Yes, one lane each way.
One lane each way.
It will be the current southbound. The current southbound lane will be for a 1.5 mile stretch around the big bend over, past the flagpole and down. It'll be, the southbound lanes will be the one way in each direction, north and south. With a Jersey barrier between it and access spaces along the side. For both construction vehicles, but also they were reminded of the need to be able to access it for first responders as well.
And they're not purposely rerouting people to 218, but people in the know are going to do that. Now, again, that's good for our businesses, but again, it's going to beat up our roads. It's going to be more traffic. It's going to be more noise. It's going to be more pollution, all the things. So just be aware of that. 2 construction seasons. So you're looking at until April. No, I'm sorry. You're looking at from Thanksgiving to April, normal passageway, and then in April they'll start again, and it'll probably go through the spring, summer, into the fall again to get it all done. Look, it's necessary. It needs to be done. It's drainage issues, all the things that need to be done, but we just got to look at the impact that's going to happen on the village, and it's going to be big. So, okay. All right, so I'm not dusting off this Duncan Avenue thing. I want to keep this, I'm going to ask the village clerk to keep this as a placeholder because we need to continue talking about it and figure something out because the people on Duncan, Michael.
You may want to look back through some historical records during Mayor Gross's administration. I believe they either did a study or they contemplated a study of that intersection and redesigning it.
Mike, that was Hudson Street and 218 on Academy.
I think they also did that too, because they talked about redesigning that.
Okay, because I know Mayor Gross came and talked to me about that, but I didn't know that it also included Duncan Avenue.
It may have. Don't quote me on it, but it may have.
I'll talk to Mayor Gross. Okay, thank you. All right, next item, so I did that. All right, the rest of these are gonna be pretty quick. Stormwater Management System Evaluation. December of 2022, July of 2023, December of 2023, January of 2024. 4 huge storms that greatly impacted our village. Greatly impacted the village of Highland Falls, greatly impacted the town of Highlands, greatly impacted us. Okay, what I'm going to ask the village board to do, and I've already talked to our engineers about this, is potentially looking at our stormwater management system to see where we are. Where are we? Well, our stormwater management system from the top of the mountain all the way down to the bottom of the mountain, and everything is gravity fed. We're trying to get the water down to the Hudson River, right? Well, our stormwater system is built for 50 to 100-year storms, and our infrastructure is 100 years old, 100 plus years old, and the newest modifications and remediations are 50 to 60 years old. So we can continue to kick the can down the road, or we can do what we did with the water system, where we paid our engineers to look at it and say, which one of our dams require immediate remediation? Which one of our well fields is our problems? Which one of our mains should we be concerned about? But look at this. Would it be as expensive as what we paid For the water system, no, that was $88,000 that the village board allocated to have our water system looked at. This should not be anywhere close to that, because remember, we're not moving water around except water we're just trying to get down to the river. But we need to look at that. The people on the top of the mountain want the water off of their properties. The people in the middle of the mountain complain to me and don't want the people on the top of the mountain to put their water at the middle of the mountain, and the people at the bottom of the mountain want the water to bypass them and get out to the Hudson River. So I think it's something that we need to bite the bullet on, decide, and I've already asked our engineer to give me an estimate and a quote that I will bring to the village board and say, this is something that we need to look at. Can we do it immediately and fix this? No. Our engineer told me conservatively, we're talking tens of millions of dollars to do this. You're gonna have to go on people's properties, and you're gonna have to reroute piping that, again, is a century old or half a century old. But we need to know what's there. And just like our sewer system in the village, a lot of it has not been mapped out. A lot of it is line and block charts where somebody wrote it, and I looked at it when I went down to look at Cherry Avenue, and I asked Dave Halverson to show it to me, and it was a piece of spiral-bound notebook, as if spiral-bound is still a thing, and literally pen and ink drawings of where we think the sewer system goes. That's what we have. So I'll get into the sewer system in a second, but one of the things, again, I have 5.5 months left. So I'm not trying to take on too many things, but one of the things that we need to start, and I'd like to bring this to the board, is we need to have our engineers, we need to pay to have a survey done of our stormwater system, because 4 major storms in 13 months. So we can kick the can down the road and hope that, Hurricane Milton or Hurricane Katrina or, Tropical Storm Irene or Superstorm Sandy doesn't hit the village, but it's going to. So these are things that I think that we really need to take a look at. But it's going to cost money, and we're probably talking about $30,000 or $40,000 that we need to earmark in the budget, Madam Treasurer. We need to make sure that we have that money set aside. One of the things that I have asked all of our department heads as mayor is to cut 5% of your budgets. Why? Because we've stayed below the tax cap for the last 3 years. And I love to pound my chest and go, we're not raising taxes. But is that fair to the next mayor or the next village board down the road when things like pensions are going up? And we're negotiating right now with the CSEA. That's our highway guys and our water department guys, and I'm about to get into it with our police department, our PBA. And the bottom line is, as healthcare costs go up, as pensions increase, as everything increases, we need to make sure that we're planning for that. So I'm not going to tell the department heads where to take their cuts. That's their job. They can figure it out. I'm not going to tell them where you can trim this or that, but that's everything, including the front office. We're going to trim 5% of our budget to plan for the fact that as we go into this next budget, we are probably going to exceed the tax cap this year. I can keep it under there and walk out and say we never raised it, but the bottom line is it's not fair. It's going to have to happen. Inflation, cost of living, all those kind of things. We need to prepare for it. And I'd rather do it now at 1 or 2% than next year somebody comes down and goes, I got to do it 8%, because that's going to hurt Mrs. McGillicuddy. Most of us can maybe afford 5%, but 8%, 10%. And as we're looking at this, we need to start planning for it. So, all right. Okay, that's that. I'm going to bring to the village board an estimate on the stormwater system from our engineers, and that brings me into the Storm King engine firehouse. So our fire department actually predates the village. The village became incorporated in 1884, but we had a fire department in 1868, 3 years after the Civil War ended. Pretty impressive, right? So we had a fire department before we were even a thing. Okay. About a year and a half ago, at the behest of our fire commission, and Chairman Giampolo, and Chief Quinn and Assistant Chief Trainer, we took a look at the firehouse because our code enforcement officer, who doesn't let me miss a beat, walked through the firehouse and said, this shall not stand. There are issues down here. And the issues are the fact that the building, which is a cinder block building, was built in 1978, the 1903 portion, and I appreciate Captain Trainer giving me a walkthrough and giving me up to speed on the dates and when things happened. But the original 1903 building, so the original building that the crossing guard, Miss Hogan, stands in front of in the morning, and Sergeant Ruger stands in front of that part of the building. The second part, the extended part where all the apparatus bays are, was built in 1978. How did we do it? We trucked in a bunch of fill and we dumped it there, and then that fill settled. And what happened is that the concrete floor has cracked severely. You're bringing these heavy-duty machines in there, whether they're pumper trucks or ladder trucks, and you're bringing them in there, and the building is settled. So there are gaps in the building between the cinder blocks that are, and so that you can see this on TV, that are 1.5 inches wide. Manny pointed this out, asked us to take a look at it. The fire department had been asking us to take a look at it. We looked at it 1.5 years ago. Our engineers took a look at it, and I said, are we going to move these folks out? Because if it's an unsafe building, we will relocate them. He said, no, the building's not going to collapse. We're good in that sense, but this is something you need to look at. Years ago, when Mayor Moulton was the mayor, and he was mayor from 1981 to 2007, they had put these little gauges that kind of kept track of the splits and the cracks in the building. So we didn't get a written report from the engineers. And to Rick's credit, he said, hey, I need something to close out Manny's violation that says this building has these issues. So our engineers came back out last week. We walked through. Captain Trainer took us through. We looked at everything from top to bottom, from the basement up to the top, and we looked at things. The village board has committed to being on track to buy apparatus. Our apparatus are 25 to 30 years old at a minimum. We obviously lost one of them recently due to an accident, but ours are 25 to 30 years old. And when we had them inspected, we learned that 20 years means an apparatus is obsolete. And we've kept them on it. It's a credit to the firefighters we have that keep these things running and on the road. But it's not something we want to play around with. So the village board brought a contractor in, he looked at it, he gave us a schedule, and we have planned for that. We have a pumper truck coming in. Chief, when is that damn thing due? The pumper truck that we have online, is it 2 more years?
December 26.
December of 26, so 2 more years essentially. But we're on track, and this is something that the village needs to commit to and spend the money to doing that. But we also have a building that's outdated, that doesn't meet OSHA standards, that doesn't meet the Firematic code and standards, which said you need what do you call it when you get something on, you need to hose off on that, a decon room. There's certain things that we do not have that we need, and we've been getting away without having, but it's not righteous. And what do? Because again, we're still sitting on 1978 fill. So does that building need to come down? Do we rebuild it? Do we repair the building itself? All right, so long as the engineers tell me it's safe to operate out of, and so long as we're on track right now with the apparatus, which are 1.2 million, 1.3 million, 1.4 million, we're talking heavy expenditures. We got to take a look at the building and see what needs to be done there. Maybe there's some stopgap stuff that we can do to fix it and make it, so that it's okay and safe for our folks, where if they get contaminated, there's a place to do that. I mean, these men and women are literally putting their bunker gear on with 4 inches between the back of the truck and where their bunker lockers are, which is just unacceptable. So I'm bringing this to the village board. I'm not trying to do this through histrionics, but I know it's something that we need to do. And I will report back to the village board and to the fire commission and to the chief, and let him know what our engineers determine in regards to what needs to be done immediately and what can be put off down the road. And then we do need to look at doing something to that building. 1978 is a good damn run, But the bottom line is, can we leave the building the way that it is? Yeah, there's a lot of apparatus that we're now conjoining where, instead of having two vehicles or two apparatus, one vehicle can do the same thing. But the building that they're in is so outdated and so war weary, for lack of a better term, we need to look at that. Captain, what did I miss? Did I hit it? Chief, Assistant Chief, anything? I'm gonna get to you, Rick, in just 1 second. Anything in the back?
No, I think you said it right. We need to figure out a plan for the future. The best way to spend the money on the firehouses, short-term repairs or long-term planning.
Thank you. Rick?
Did you hear back from the engineer? He promised some documentation at the meeting, but I don't see any.
Nothing yet, but I've got to talk to him about, I think the village board is in agreement with me that we need to kind of, figure out what we're gonna do on the stormwater system, and that's gonna be my next conversation to him. He knows that, he is going to reply to Manny's inspection, and I want you folks to be comfortable that you've got, young people and older people, but you've got young people in there working. I want to make sure that, the village board is comfortable with you inhabiting that building. So, yeah, he's working on that. That's what he told me. Okay. All right, anything else on fire? Okay. All right, next item, that was that. Less than full-time building inspector position. So, Madam Treasurer, you're going to give us an idea. So one of the things that I had spoken to our code enforcement officer about was the fact that right now, trying to find somebody to come in and fill in a spot as a part-time building inspector. Our building inspector works 20 hours a week, works 10 hours on Monday, 5 hours on Tuesday, 5 hours on Thursday. Our goal was to hire somebody to come in and to fill those voids, whether it's Tuesday morning, Thursday morning, Wednesday all day, and Friday. Jimmy Moore worked for us for about 18 months, Manny? Was it about that long?
Maybe a little less, yeah.
A little less than, maybe a little over a year. And unfortunately, due to the fact he's a full-time firefighter with the Arlington Fire Department, the Arlington Fire District, it just couldn't work out timing-wise. So Jimmy is leaving the village. So we have one building inspector right now. When I tell you that I have put feelers out there to try to find people to come in and fill this position, and we are still looking, one of the options we can do in the interim is a position called a less than full-time position. So if you're a part-time employee in the village, you can't work more than 1,040 hours a year. If you're a full-time employee, you work 2,080 hours a year. So, without gaming the system, I asked our village treasurer and our deputy village treasurer, Paula Sebesta Howard, to look into the rules regarding a less than full-time position. And Megan, what can you tell us about our ability in the interim to be able to extend Mr. Carmona's hours?
So less than full-time can be done. That being said, we would have to pull from the building inspector 3 list. There are 17 individuals on that list. The test was just offered. Manny is not on that list as of right now. So what the village would have to do would be to canvass that list. Village would have to offer to those 17 individuals what we're offering Manny, and see if anyone is interested. If no one is interested, then we can offer basically a provisional position and put Manny in that, and then he would have to test when that test becomes available, which could be in a year, 2, 3, we don't know.
That's the Orange County test?
Yes, for building inspector 3. And he would have to be reachable, so 1, 2, or 3 on that list. Manny and I just spoke, and he has asked me to look into to see if there is a code enforcement officer list I did not look into that. I looked into the building inspector 3 list, which is what Manny is.
So there's no reciprocity from Rockland County to Orange County? Because you have the certifications in Rockland, there's no reciprocity?
Not a certification, it's a test which is county-wide. Every county has their own test. Certification is through the state, which, you know, that means I can work anywhere in the state of New York, but I will have to test in that particular county.
That makes no sense.
You would have to be reachable in Orange County.
Got it. Okay. So what about on an interim basis? Are we allowed to expand hours on the interim basis, or is that circumventing the rules?
He can't exceed 1040.
No, for the year, but I can keep him under 1040. Or, no, we wouldn't be able to do that.
It's math.
Yeah. So it's not keeping him under 2080. Because less than full-time is 2079, correct?
Correct.
Can we keep him under 2079?
He's not in a less than full-time position right now. He's in a part-time.
They have to canvass a 17 before they can offer that.
You would have to canvass the 17
All right.
individuals.
So I'm gonna continue to search for another part-timer, and Manny, in the interim, with your blessing, you're gonna get with Megan and bring me a solution, and then I'll bring it to the board, okay? But you understand the hurdles that Megan just laid out, so. And Manny had offered us an opportunity to kind of help out before we found somebody else, but if it's not allowable, it's not allowable.
I mean, you can canvass the list and we can offer it out, see if there's any interest. If there's not.
For a part-time position. I'm not looking to hire somebody less than full-time.
We would open it up to a less than full-time position.
And then he would compete for that position?
If there's no interest, we could pop him in. And then he would just have to test when that test becomes available and be reachable.
And you would tell them how difficult it is to work for me, and then you would be the only person that would put in for it.
The only stipulation is we would have to offer those 17 individuals what we're offering Manny. We couldn't drop that down any.
So I'm happy to learn more about this offline, but the question I have is, we're looking to extend hours for our code enforcement
Yes.
/ building inspector by a certain amount, but not up to the level of 2,079, less than full-time hours per year. So for example, and I don't know what you all have discussed, but Manny works for us for 20 hours a week, and we would say, let's make that 30. If we're to offer against that, we're just offering 10 hours a week. Is that?
That's still
Because we
less
have to
than
create a
full-time.
different position that is less than full-time. Less than full-time goes between part-time and full-time. Okay, all right, I'll learn more about it offline, but.
Because remember, what you're doing is you're not offering full pay and benefits. You're not offering health care, all those kind
Oh,
of
yeah,
things.
no, I understand why we would do that.
But they don't want you gaming the system and saying, I'm gonna hire this person for 2,079 hours and not pay you
No.
health care.
The county's protecting its list.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Understood.
They do it in everything.
Understood.
Okay.
It's not just this.
All right, so Manny, you'll get with Megan? All right, sounds good.
It's not the
All right,
first
so I
rodeo.
just wanted to bring that to the board's attention so that we know where we're at on that. Okay, all right, curfew, under consideration for Halloween. I always hate doing this, but apparently it's something we always do. So the village board approves a curfew which goes into effect from 10 PM.
You approved the curfew.
I approve the curfew, but I want to make sure the
Declare a
village.
state of emergency. I
I
believe.
get 10 PM to 4 AM for Halloween. I mean, not that we've had big problems with, Chief, in the last, how long have you been chief?
At 10 p.m. to 4 a.m.
That's plenty late.
That's proposed.
Have we had historically any issues on All Hallows Night with anybody doing anything crazy or kooky? Not that it can't happen this year, but what are your thoughts in regards to us doing what do you feel about the curfew?
Yeah.
Okay. Dave, yeah?
Yeah.
Bill?
Well, I would just say, no record of any mischief happening, but we've always instituted the curfew.
That's true.
I am appreciative of
Correlation is causality, Bill?
I don't know. I've always thought that I believe it was previously set at 8 p.m. and we took a more moderate approach to make
Yes.
it 10 p.m., which I think
that's
is
right.
reasonable.
All right. So Doris, what do you need from us? I think the board.
Nothing, it's just 5 days before you sign it.
Okay. Is the board supportive of that?
Yes,
All right.
Yes.
I am.
10 p.m. to 4 a.m.?
Yep.
Is that what we're
Yes.
thinking, Bill?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Something I brought up last year that we were going to revisit this year was possibly closing Homeland down to, from traffic on Halloween.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Talked about that for 100 years.
Yeah. I
Homeland
just
used to be twice
Well,
as busy as it is now.
I know. And what I always worry about is once you
I
do
know, I
that,
was there.
everybody else is going to want that on their block. And then how do you go, I'm doing it there, but I'm not doing it there?
Half what it used to be.
That's my only
Keep
concern.
hoping everything's safe then.
All right.
All right.
Let's talk about it. I mean, well, we don't have another meeting, but come see me about it and we'll talk about it. But yeah, I'm loath to do that only because then it's just going to open the door for other places. All right. That's that. Okay. So I don't know if you read the Cornwall Local, but front page was about our cybersecurity issues and concerns. The first time the village has ever had a cybersecurity study done, but we got hammered. Anyhow, we are looking at that. I know that concerns are anything less than 50. Michael, what do we have? We scored 44. Okay. I don't ever want to dismiss something like somebody coming in and saying you can do better on this. But things like two-factor authentication, and I come from the FBI where everything was done through classified, you had to be so concerned about cybersecurity, and I'm not dismissing it here, but the village is going to look at this and figure out ways that we can improve on this. But again, if somebody wants to, and I'm not recommending that this happen, but the type of material that we deal with, it's not no foreign, it's not secret, it's not classified, that kind of thing, but we do need to get better at it. I mean, things just like walking away from your computer. In the FBI, you could get fired by walking away from your computer and not shutting it down. Here, I'm guilty of that and probably need to make sure that we do a better job here at Village Hall in that. So it is something that we are focused on. Mike, we're looking at having Fish come in and potentially,
Help us out with something.
yeah, I was gonna say, in regards to the IT stuff and help us on that.
Require an RFP.
Yeah, which means we'll have to open it up to others as well. But they are local and they're the ones that did the evaluation on it. But I don't want people to think that, my God, the secrets are getting out and the Russians and the Iranians and the North Koreans and the Chinese are stealing our state secrets. But it is something that we have to get better at here, and we're going to do that. So, okay, that's cybersecurity. That's that. Reinspection of that. Curfew, Storm King Roundtable. That's that. Okay, I think we are, last thing is, one other thing that I'm gonna take on before I leave office is the sewer system. And the fact that since 1967, and I have both of the documents that have been memorialized between the village and the town in an IMA. Remember, we didn't have a water IMA until recently, and I want to thank the Board of Trustees and Superintendent Trainer for that. But on the sewer side, there are two documents that the village and the town have entered into. One was in 1967, I was 2 years old, and one was in 1969, I was 4 years old, and they're both 2 pages. And basically, the agreement back then, remember the difference between water and sewer is this. The village owns all of the infrastructure in the town for water. The town owns none of the infrastructure in the village for sewer, other than the sewage treatment plant, which is down on Shore Road. So for years and years and years, we've been in a 1/3, 2/3 relationship with the town. And we're about to take a hard look at that because the village is 3,000 residents. The greater Cornwall area is 13,000 residents, which makes us 25% of the population. But we are on the hook for 1/3 of the capital costs, 1/3 of debt service, 1/3 of expenditures, inflow and infiltration, or I&I. So this is something, and I've already spoken to the supervisor about this in the town. I know he wanted to do the same thing I did with the water system, is take a look at this. But these are questions we should be having. Why is this agreement? It has not been recodified. It has not been re-looked at. And it's supposed to be looked at every 18 months. That's what the town code suggests, every 18 months. And we haven't. And again, if it's fair for the village to pay 1/3 of the freight, I'm good with it. If it's not, then we're gonna open up a can of worms. So that's where we're at right now. Okay, for your information, October 26th, Mike, we're changing that, correct? All right, let's talk about it. So Mike reached out to me, Mike and Dominic. I love this, the fact that they came up with a great idea for something. Since we have an East Coast, West Coast World Series with a lot of Yankee fans, and what are we looking to do, Mike?
So we're looking to show Game 2 of the World Series on the movie screen at the Cornwall Little League Fields.
Nice.
On Saturday night.
Which is what date, Mike?
The 26th of October. Nope.
Same date.
Yeah, it's October 26th, the same date, right?
Yeah, disregard.
Okay, October 26th. And obviously the game is that going to be in New York or in LA?
It's in LA.
So is that going to be a late start because it's LA?
No, it's an 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock game.
Yeah,
Okay.
8 o'clock, 5 o'clock their time. It'll look warm
Yeah.
on the screen, but it's due to be a chilly evening.
Yep.
I believe we're working with the Little League to open up the concession stand to maybe sell some hot chocolate, some coffee, some hot dogs. It's a fundraiser for one of the travel teams or such. One of the travel teams is raising money to go to a Cooperstown tournament next year.
Love it.
Great.
So we're doing that in lieu of the movie that we had planned to do at the firehouse. We just thought that this would be a better event to do since the Yankees are in the World Series, and a lot of people would probably turn out for that, and to do it in the town at the Little League fields.
Last time is Los Angeles and the Dodgers and the Yankees played was 1981. Yankees and Dodgers in 81.
Well, all right. Okay, so that's that. October 31st is Halloween. We're obviously going to support the curfew from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. November 5th is a presidential election, which will be here. I love the fact that we do our elections here now. It's not across the street. It's not anywhere else. And the county does it the same way we do, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. So come in here to vote. If you don't vote early, come in here to vote. So Doris, they're going to run the election, right? We don't have anything to do with that. Okay. November 11th, which is the Monday between November 4th, which is our village board work session, and November 18th, which is the village board business meeting, is Veterans Day. There's always an annual event up there at Veterans Triangle. I think it's 11 o'clock in the morning, but don't quote me on that. No parade. It's not Memorial Day or 4th of July, but there is an event up there. November 12th, Rick, Fire Commission meeting here at 6 p.m. on November 12th, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then November 17th, the Suicide Prevention and Bereavement Fundraiser from 2 to 3 p.m. at the bandstand. November 18th, the Village Board Work Session in the conference room. All right. I appreciate you all putting up with me, and I know we still have one last thing before I send it around the board, and that would be public comment. So anybody from the public wish to speak right now to the Village Board?
You chased them all.
I think so. I know. All right. I don't see anybody, so no public comment. I'm going to go around the village board. Trustee Paleota.
I have nothing to add.
Okay.
Wanna-
Trustee
Seemed
Brain.
pretty comprehensive. I'm going to add my stuff real fast. Congratulations to the Storm King Engine Company #2 on your county awards that you got at the County Association. And thanks to DPW for sanitation bulk pickup. And then Donahue Committee wanted to make sure that their gratitude to the village board and the DPW and water departments were expressed. Thanks for the demolition and other things that DPW did, as well as the providing the water service Yeah, there was electric service also provided, and the water service down to Donahue Farm. So that
Well
committee
done.
is very, very grateful. And they're meeting again. I don't have the date in front of me, I'm sorry. But in the barn, once more, dressing warm, as they were advised to have their next meeting in the barn again.
Excellent. All right, trustee Carnwright.
I don't have anything.
Okay, I'm gonna second what the other trustees
Thanks to
said.
Bill for doing all the work on the EV thing.
Yep, well done.
My pleasure.
Well done on that.
I did speak with that vendor today, and they said that if we did vote in favor of them, they were ready to rock and roll and would be in touch immediately with next steps and plans and all that stuff.
So Dave is not here. Obviously, I told you he was upstate. 2 projects that we'll be doing here in the fall. One is Idlewild on the east side of Idlewild. Remember, we did sidewalks on the west side several years ago, but on the east side, there are sidewalks there that do not meet code, which I can live with because they're not 4 feet by 4 feet, which is what they have to be by code. But the problem is that they are so disjointed that they are a hazard. So we are probably not going to replace the sidewalks there. I looked at it with Dave. We walked it the other day with one of the residents there on Idlewild. We are going to pull those. They're made out of macadam. They're not concrete sidewalks. We're going to pull them out, and then we're going to seed it and return it to nature. And I think I will obviously speak to the residents on that side to let them know that that's what we're doing, but that is the plan. The second thing is the town supervisor and myself, I think it's next week or it could be the following week, have our meeting with New York State in regard to the New York Forward projects as we start to move out to RFPs for some of these projects, like the the Dock Hill Road project, the Donahue Farm project, the Main Street Pollinator Corridor Connector Trail. And one of the things that we are gonna do before winter is where the town village sign is, which the village has put in and maintained. We are going to expand that on both sides, half of it into the town, half of it into the village, about 10 feet out, about 3 or 4 foot wide. We're working with the Cornwall Conservation Advisory Council to start our pollinator corridor. So we won't plant anything this year, but we will do a raised flower bed. And the wonderful thing about having the Donahue Committee and the folks down there is we have great compost now, and that compost will now come in and we'll put that down for the winter. And then in the spring, wait till you see what we're gonna do with the butterfly bushes and the pollinator corridor there. It's really gonna be a special place. And that's all I got. Any alibis? Counselor?
No, sir.
Superintendents? Nope. All right, I'm gonna make a motion to close the village board meeting, 2.5 hours. I never have meetings this long. May I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank
Thanks,
you, everybody.
everybody.
Kane is rolling in his room.
Kane is, yeah.